After getting back with Elias, everyone around him said I'd changed. I used to be notorious for being a drama queen, checking his phone, clinging to him like we were Siamese twins, demanding he report every little thing. It wasn't until I was drowned by the brutal class gap that I realized everyone around him thought I wasn't good enough for him. Later, I became his mistress, obedient and sweet, never daring to say I loved him, best at trading sweet nothings for his money. But he held my hand and asked me why I didn't love him anymore. Chapter 1. I ran into Elias again while entertaining investors over drinks. Because of a failed investment, I was scolded like trash and had to smile while downing glass after glass of liquor. I rushed to the restroom, shoved my fingers down my throat to throw up, and ended up with swollen, bloodshot eyes. That's when I locked eyes with Elias. He stood in the crowd like a star surrounded by planets, always surrounded by flattery. Stunned, I watched as his gaze brushed past me lightly, like I was garbage, unworthy of notice. I remembered how, during our breakup, I had screamed at him, "So what if you're rich?" Now that life had slapped me around 100 times, I finally understood being rich is very impressive. After the breakup, I became a pathetic mess, and he saw it all. When I pushed open the private room door again, the investor who had just been shouting at me now wore a bootlicking grin as he greeted Elias's boss. He offered his hand, but Elias didn't shake it. The atmosphere turned awkward. The investor was the client. Elias was his client. I couldn't afford to offend either. I had to play the role of the smooth-talking nobody. Sorry, I didn't recognize the real boss. I'll take 3 shots to make up for it. The strong liquor stung my mouth, masking the bitterness in my heart. The investor's face eased, and he withdrew his hand. Elias got straight to the point. "How much are you still short?" At that point, my company was on the brink of collapse. The startup phase burned through cash fast, and my eyes lit up at his words. Right then and there, Elias signed the investment agreement with a flourish. "I don't have your contact info, do I? From now on, report directly to me about the company's operations." He clicked the pen shut, folded his hands, and looked at me calmly, completely in control. I quickly pulled out my phone and played the part of a sycophant. I re-added the WeChat I had once blocked, even swearing never to speak to him again. But I knew this wouldn't be that simple. Sure enough, a message came in right away. "Come see me after this." I treated myself like a piece of meat waiting to be sliced. I rinsed my mouth carefully and sprayed perfume to cover the alcohol smell he hated. Then I tapped on his car window and gave him the sweetest smile I could muster. That night, I traded my body for resources. It was no big deal. I told myself, if I wanted my company to thrive, I'd have to sacrifice some dignity along the way. During this reconciliation, Elias never said a single tender word. He kept a stony face in the car as I struggled to make conversation. Then, in the heat of passion, he grabbed my chin and smirked coldly. "I knew you'd come back to me." He stroked my hair, casually, like petting a dog. "Be good from now on, okay? Don't ever talk about breaking up again." Chapter 2. After that day, I moved into Elias's place. I was a little shocked. 3 years since the breakup, and his place looked exactly the same. The lemon tree on the balcony? I was the one who bought it. Now it had grown taller. The shelves still held those cheap, silly decorations I once randomly bought. Even the yellowed sticky note on the fridge remained. "Piggy baby, I love you so much. I made you breakfast. Don't forget to eat. I'll miss you 100 times today." I shivered. Goosebumps all over. The walk-in closet was almost empty. Elias's clothes occupied just one section. The bags I didn't take when we broke up were still there. It felt both strange and familiar. "Don't overthink it," Elias added. "I hardly ever come back. Just forgot to throw stuff out." I remembered how I used to test my importance to him by throwing tantrums and being dramatic. That's why his friends never liked me. When we broke up, his childhood friend Amelia even bluntly told me I was delusional. And Elias didn't defend me. Looking back, I was the one who didn't understand the rules. If you want money, don't ask for love. We were never equals. I nodded calmly and even smiled at Elias. I'm honored those things are still here. I was immature back then. Please don't take it to heart. Elias's expression visibly darkened. He looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't. Chapter 3. I only brought a few outfits, all basic business attire. The walk-in closet looked desolate. To be honest, I learned this the hard way after our last breakup. That day, I found out Elias's family was arranging a fiancé for him, and he didn't say no. I cried like a broken faucet, non-stop, sniffling like a mess. I looked ridiculous, as if holding back snot was my last shred of dignity. Elias and his friends sat there watching me, stuffing clothes into my suitcase while squatting on the floor. Their eyes were filled with a mix of pity and mockery. Amelia even took my hand. Elias having a fiancé won't change anything between you two. Everyone in this circle knows how it works. You should be more understanding. I yelled that they were disgusting, that they were all sick in the head. Then, dragging my suitcase like it weighed a ton, I walked slowly toward the door, watched silently by everyone. That day, my love and dignity were shattered into pieces. I swore I'd never let myself end up in that kind of pathetic state again. Tomorrow I'll have someone come measure you. You need more dresses, Elias said, frowning at the empty closet. I was about to refuse, but then I thought, at least I'd have nicer outfits for meeting clients. So I turned around and sweetly wrapped my arms around his neck, giving him a kiss on the cheek. Sure. Thank you, boss. The smile on Elias's face froze. He stared at me for a long moment. You didn't use to call me boss. Don't you think it sounds distant? I used to give him tons of cute nicknames. Piggy baby, honey, Mr. Boyfriend, switching it up all the time. Now just thinking about it makes me want to cringe. Later, I realized everyone close to him called him Elias. He never corrected me, but he also never brought me into his social circle. I was always an outsider, awkward and out of place. I turned and smiled at him even sweeter. Sorry, Elias. I didn't mean to miss the detail. But Elias's face darkened even more, and he walked out without a word. That infuriating man, impossible to please. Chapter 4. Enemies always cross paths. The next day, just after finishing a tennis match with a client, I ran into Amelia and Elias together. A flicker of awkwardness flashed in her eyes, understandable, since things between us had never been pleasant. I had always felt Elias was too close to her. They'd share the same drink, wear each other's clothes, and Amelia even helped pick out potential wives for him. To me, that crossed way too many boundaries. But Elias found my complaints annoying. I'll never consider a girlfriend more important than my social circle. You have nothing, and you bring nothing to the table. That came out of his mouth one night when he was drunk. During one of our fights, I dug my nails into my palm to hold back tears. Poverty is already humiliating. Being with someone who doesn't love you adds salt to the wound. But look at me now. I've grown. I can curse Amelia in my head while running up to hug her dramatically. The client wasn't far away, and I wanted him to see I'm besties with a rich heiress. Amelia hugged me back, even though I knew she was mentally rolling her eyes so hard they almost flew out of her skull. Elias said in the group chat, you two got back together. I'm so happy. I missed you so much. Olivia. She gave me an exaggerated air kiss, while Elias looked at us, completely baffled. I used to hate how they had private group chats without me. Elias wouldn't add me in. He replied to them faster than he ever did to me. And their conversations? I couldn't relate to a single thing. Now, I've learned the value of strategic silence. I was so immature back then. I said some tactless things. That's why I didn't dare reach out. You're not still mad at me, right? I grabbed her hand with fake sincerity, as if we were the closest friends in the universe. Of course not. Remember when your mom was picking out a wife for Elias and asked me to help? I kept thinking you were the best option. Amelia always had a way of coating her knives in sugar. In one casual remark, she reminded me she had real influence in Elias's household, and that after we broke up, he kept looking for more suitable matches. I haven't met with anyone. I'm not looking for a match. Elias had apparently matured too. He finally knew how to lower himself to offer an explanation. He slid a cup of ice cream toward me. Amelia was faster. She scooped a spoonful first. Vanilla's way better than my matcha. She narrowed her eyes and smiled sweetly at Elias. Then Elias handed me the same spoon he had just used. My pupils shook. The man owns a business empire. Can't he afford another scoop of ice cream? Why must we swap saliva? Back then, I loved sharing food with Elias. In hindsight, I chalk it up to a lack of hygiene awareness. Now, Absolutely not. Without changing expression, I gently pushed the cup back toward him. Subtle rejection. Achieved. Sorry, Elias. I'm on my period. No cold food. Elias waved for a server and ordered me a hot chocolate. If I'm not mistaken, Olivia's allergic to chocolate. Amelia cut in smoothly. Elias stared at me in disbelief, looking for confirmation. Even Amelia remembered this. And Elias, my actual boyfriend, did not. That said everything about how much attention he paid to me when we were together. Good thing I've learned to manage my expectations. With no expectations, there's no disappointment. Chapter 5. As we were leaving the tennis court, I caught sight of a familiar figure on the court. Duncan, my best friend Sabrina's favorite tennis player. I casually pulled out my phone, snapped a couple of photos, and sent them to her. She instantly replied with a string of screaming ahs. I was laughing while texting when Elias leaned over to look at my screen. Instinctively, I switched apps. The smile on his lips disappeared, and a subtle wave of irritation radiated from him. Can't have the sponsor getting mad. So I took the initiative and held his hand. Sorry, I just got used to keeping my phone private after work. Didn't mean anything by it. I'd learned my lesson. The one in the weaker position doesn't get to throw fits. You have to be proactive. Stay humble, and know your place to maintain the balance. After all, I had gained a lot from Elias. Definitely worth it. Why don't you share things with me anymore? Elias interlocked our fingers and looked down, asking softly. I used to tell him everything. The sunset I saw, the terrible cab I took, the cute puppy I pet on the street. When I was in love with him, I was bursting with things to share, even if he rarely responded. I clung to his arm and gave it a gentle shake. You're always so busy with work. I don't want to bother you. Truth is, I just don't think of him anymore. Elias stroked my hair but didn't say anything. After that day, it was like he'd been possessed. He started texting me nonstop. While I was having dinner with a client, he sent me a photo with just 2 words. Lunch. A question mark popped into my brain. Why are you sending me this? Since the client was still present, it would have been rude to be on my phone. It wasn't until afterward that I had time to reply. Balanced meal. Looks awesome. While I was driving, the phone buzzed again. Got a business dinner tonight. I'll be home around 11. Don't wait up. Then he added, hate these dinners. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes and replied, I hate them too. Don't drink too much. Take care of yourself. Now that we've swapped roles, I finally realize I used to be that annoying person constantly sending messages. Right away, I messaged our company's programmer and had him connect my WeChat to an AI smart reply assistant. Let AI take over. It can be the perfect girlfriend who replies instantly. Chapter 6. Elias came home slightly drunk. Even though he'd said not to wait, I still made him some hangover soup and sat in the living room, waiting to hug him the moment he walked in. He smiled at me, loosening his tie with one hand, his eyes soft and relaxed. It was the first time he had smiled at me like that since we got back together. For a moment, I felt like I was seeing the man I'd first met. I sighed silently. If only life could always feel like the first time we met. He lifted me into his arms, his lips pressing against my neck, his breathing growing heavier. This is nice. You're such a good girl. After you left, I imagined this moment over and over, you waiting for me at home like before. My lips smiled, but my eyes remained cold. In his version of the past, I was just the sweet girl waiting obediently at home. But Elias, do you know? Every time I waited for you, I was drowning in anxiety and heartache. You ignored my texts, refused to answer my calls. I knew you had another life, one that was far more exciting and didn't include me. I'd sit on the couch quietly, crying a little, glancing at the clock, checking your WeChat step count and stalking Amelia's stories, trying to guess when you'd come back. In my head, I'd imagine myself breaking up with you. You'd get down on your knees, begging me not to go. But then, I couldn't bring myself to actually end it. I hated how low I'd sunk, but I couldn't stop. All because I loved you. But none of that ever mattered to you. You never even saw it. Could you reward me a little? Hint, I'm kinda broke lately. I buried the cold in my expression and leaned into Elias's chest, focusing on getting what I came for. Our bodies tangled together. Heat transferring between us. How about this number? Happy now? He made a transfer. Just as he finished, his phone died and shut off. I counted the zeros behind the amount, grinning as I got up to heat the soup. My phone's dead. Can I borrow yours to call my assistant? He called out from the living room. I answered casually. But then, silence. Soup in hand. I stepped out, only to see him staring at my phone with a dark expression. He held it up, and only then did I realize he'd seen the AI auto-reply assistant on my WeChat. He cursed and hurled my phone to the floor. A loud crash echoed in the room. So you've just been faking it this whole time? His eyes were bloodshot. He grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to face him. Why are you always so distracted? What the hell am I to you, Olivia? Chapter 7. Fighting is endless and pointless. That's what I learned from our previous relationship. Every time I told him he was dismissive or that he didn't care about me, Elias would give me that impatient look and ask what I wanted this time. From the start, our love had never been equal. He could brush me off like it was nothing, but if I ever did the same, it was treated like a massive betrayal. So I wrapped my arms around him and used a night of intense sex to smother his anger. In the heat of passion, Elias cupped my face. Do you still love me, Olivia? His head nestled into my neck, leaving behind a deep, dark hickey. I want you to treat me like you used to. I closed my eyes. You're drunk. Go to sleep. I was exhausted, so tired of bending over backward, of sacrificing my dignity just to keep things together. But at least tonight, I didn't want to lie. I quietly got up to clean myself, but he grabbed my wrist. Why don't you ever use the handbag I gave you? I started dressing, buttoning up one by one. Before I could answer, he had already fallen asleep, lashes casting a thick shadow over his eyes. He looked like an angel, but when he's awake, his words cut like knives. Back when I tried to break up with him, he looked me over coldly, from head to toe. Equality? What do you even have to be equal with me? Everything you're wearing, I paid for. So I threw my necklace and handbag at him, crying, but he just sneered. Your underwear too. Want to take that off next? A tidal wave of shame swallowed me whole, so I learned my lesson. I gave all the luxury bags he gave me to my clients to maintain relationships, to build connections. I kept telling myself, be good, be even better, get more out of him. That's why I came back, wasn't it? But muscle memory is hard to erase. Some parts of me still clung to dignity I shouldn't afford. Elias and I quietly agreed to never bring up that fight again. He stopped texting me. Now, my WeChat was just rows of money transfers. Until my birthday. Chapter 8. I used to be the kind of girl who lived for rituals. No matter how big or small the occasion, I never missed a single holiday or anniversary. Back then, I was a young girl with all the time in the world to waste. I loved finding any excuse to celebrate with Elias, just to be with him. But Elias was the complete opposite. Olivia, can you stop being so annoying? If you want a gift, just say it. Our lives aren't the same. My hourly rate is 1,000 times yours. After the breakup, I started working and building my own company. Time became a luxury. I slowly began to understand where he was coming from. My schedule got so packed. I actually forgot today was my birthday, but I remembered I had a dinner meeting with Duncan, finally. After months of trying, I'd secured time with him. He just won a major international tournament, becoming one of the most influential athletes in the game. I wanted to convince him to endorse my brand. Unlike his aggressive style on the court, Duncan was elegant and calm in person. We hit it off instantly. And that night, we locked in the details of our deal. This isn't the first time we've met, he said, reaching out to shake my hand. I smiled. I remember the tennis court. Duncan shook his head. Much earlier than that. I was caught off guard, trying to recall, and didn't notice the camera filming us from a distance. Chapter 9. Someone took photos of me having dinner with Duncan, and by that night, we were trending on Weibo. My eyes lit up with Duncan's team's approval. I leaned into the buzz, intentionally keeping the topic hot. Announcing the endorsement deal during peak traffic would give us maximum exposure. But someone else was clearly working against us. They had resources on a whole other level, and in no time, The trend was suppressed. Nothing went as planned. I returned to Elias's place. Frustrated. Where were you? The house was completely dark. When I turned on the lights, I saw Elias sitting on the couch, looking gloomy and bitter. In front of him was a crooked, lopsided cake. Sorry, did you wait long? I tried to hold his hand. He dodged. Guess I'm just pathetic, he said, his voice cracking. I actually made you a cake. I wanted to give you a proper birthday, but you were out dining with someone else. You didn't even call me. He yelled at me, his eyes rimmed red. We stared at each other in silence. I swallowed my irritation, tried to let it go. But in the end, I couldn't. I furrowed my brows and looked at him. Making something by hand doesn't automatically make it special. You were the one who taught me that. I'd done this before. I gave him a blanket I wove myself. Cookies I baked from scratch. Cherry tomatoes I grew with my own hands. Elias casually shoved them all into some corner. They just sat there, untouched, until they went moldy. What did Elias say back then? Olivia, when will you get it? The value of something is determined by socially necessary labor time. Stop trying to tell me your handmade stuff is worth anything. When I was making those things, I was thinking of him every moment. All my overflowing affection meant nothing to him. Eventually, I grew up. He taught me to stop being so sentimental. And now, I gave that same sentence back to him, word for word. Why is it that your handmade gift suddenly becomes precious? Is it because you're a CEO? Because you're up on some pedestal and I'm beneath you by default? Right on cue, the lopsided cake collapsed further, looking even uglier now. Elias's chest heaved. He rushed over and held me tightly. I'm sorry. You've been resenting me all this time, haven't you? His cheek pressed against mine. Our tears mixed, salty, bitter. I'll start thinking from your perspective from now on. You still love me like before, right? Let's just be okay again, please? His arms wrapped around me like chains. He kissed me fiercely, almost like possession. Maybe, for a moment. I almost wavered, but then his next sentence poured ice water over my head. I was so jealous of Duncan. So this is what it felt like for you, back when I was with Amelia. I could feel the tremor in his chest as he spoke. That's why I had my assistant take the trending topic down immediately. Don't worry, I handled it. I jolted out of whatever softness I'd been trapped in and sat straight up, staring at him. Elias reached out to touch my face. I slapped his hand away, then slapped his face, hard. 5 red marks bloomed on his cheek. So it was you. Elias stared at me, shocked and humiliated. Are you insane? I slapped him again. Let me make this clear. Work is my bottom line. Don't ever interfere again. One more time. And we're done, for good. I pushed Elias away and walked out of his home. Luckily, I'd learned from last time. I hadn't left anything important at his place. I could leave freely. Love really does make people worship the powerful and trample the weak. Before, Elias knew I loved him, so he took his time breaking me down. But after we got back together, if he hadn't texted me, hadn't made me cake, hadn't shown the tiniest hint that he still loved me, I would have kept treating him like a paycheck with a heartbeat. But the moment affection reveals itself, it's like handing someone a weapon to destroy you. We lose control. We say the cruelest things. We hurt each other like we're possessed. In the end, Elias and I, we're not that different. Chapter 10. I held my pride for a few days. Then my company ran low on funds again, and reality hit me like a slap in the face. Honestly, what a mess. So embarrassing. I cursed myself for letting anger cloud my judgment, for not knowing when to fold. Then I swallowed my pride, pulled myself together, and fired off a long string of groveling messages to Elias. A whole day passed before he deigned to reply, with 6 words. Wait downstairs at my building, that bastard. I cursed him in my head while instantly replying with, okay. Just my luck, it started pouring as soon as I got there. I was nearly soaked through. Elias's company security was very by the book. Since I didn't have an appointment, they wouldn't let me upstairs. I called Elias, no answer. That petty, vengeful little man. I stared daggers at my phone, imagining all the ways I could skin him alive. Olivia? What are you doing here? The rain above me suddenly stopped. I looked up, locked eyes with Duncan. The umbrella. Suddenly, I remembered. It was the first time my dad took me to watch a junior tennis match. The gap in skill was obvious. The winner was clear from the start, and the whole crowd cheered for the other player. Duncan had lost, badly. He walked off alone, dragging his huge tennis bag. The interviews, the applause, they were for someone else. He had nothing. Then it started raining. I felt bad. I ran over, handed him my umbrella, told him I'd been following his matches and asked if I could have his autograph. A little white lie. But Duncan looked up, surprised and touched. I'll play better next time, he said seriously. I won't let you down. So it was you, he said now, smiling. You were amazing. You know that? His face lit up. Back then, no one knew who I was. You were the first person who ever asked for my autograph. He handed me his umbrella. I've got a few friends who are interested in investing in your company. If you're looking for funding, you don't have to go through Elias. I can connect you. My eyes lit up, twice. I nodded like crazy. Honestly, Elias isn't right for you. Duncan seemed ready to keep going, but I cut him off. Lightning round. Be honest. Are you helping me because you like me? Time is money. I don't have the energy to play the flirting game anymore. Duncan paused, slightly stunned, then smiled. And what if I said yes? I handed the umbrella back to him. Then I'll need to keep my distance. Awkwardness hung in the air. Right as my phone rang, it was Elias. His voice cold as ice. Come up. I looked up. He was standing at the top floor window, face dark and stormy, staring straight at us. Chapter 11. The red mark on Elias's face still hadn't faded. He was wearing a mask. I almost wanted to laugh, but when I saw the tight frown on his face, I held it in, feeling better. Elias? I feel so guilty. I totally lost it. I don't know what came over me. I reached out and touched his face gently. Elias let out a cold snort but didn't push me away, letting me peel off his mask. Don't be mad anymore. Okay, baby? I know I was wrong. I wrapped my arms pitifully around his waist and stood on tiptoes to kiss his lips. Really sorry? If I hadn't called you just now, you and Duncan could have chatted till the end of time. Huh? Elias pulled me into his arms. There's only one way to deal with Elias when he's jealous. I locked the office door behind us and turned to him with a smile. We haven't done it here yet, have we? His hand around my waist suddenly tightened. I slowly undid the buttons of his shirt, my fingers drifting lower as I breathed softly in his ear. But baby, my company's been struggling lately. I haven't even had the headspace to focus on romance. It's not that I'm ignoring you on purpose. Elias laughed. His eyes practically screamed. I knew it. So you never really loved me. You just love the money, right? He grabbed my waist tighter, masking the sadness in his eyes. What's the difference? I only love your money, Elias. I wouldn't even want anyone else's. I leaned against his shoulder. He carried me to the couch. And in return, I got another huge deposit. Worth it. But as we looked at each other, our eyes were hollow, vacant, as if we saw through one another, and still chose to sink deeper, willingly. Chapter 12. Elias invested in my company, on one condition. I had to accompany him to meet his friends. He must have said something to them beforehand, because the same friends who once mocked me were suddenly polite, even respectful. Sister-in-law. They greeted me. So clearly, he could have done this before. He just never wanted to treat me seriously. I greeted them one by one. Now, I no longer sweat the small stuff. I added each of them on WeChat. They were all so-and-so CEO or director this or that. You never know who might come in handy someday, even if it's just for a few likes in their Moments feed. At least it keeps me visible. Elias kept playing with my hand over and over. Don't talk to them too often, he whispered in my ear. I'll get jealous. His childhood buddies all burst into laughter, and I, honestly, felt a wave of disgust. So this is how nauseating I used to sound when I tried to mark my territory. God, making money really is harder than swallowing shit. Chapter 13. Just as the company started to show some signs of life, Elias's mother came to see me. I quietly speculated what she might say. Would it be like in those dramas? Slapping a fat check on the table, Telling me to leave Elias? Honestly, if the amount was good enough, I might consider it. I braced myself for battle and went to the meeting, but instead, she began by talking about my company. I repeated all the same exaggerated lines I usually give to investors, delivering them with enthusiasm and flair. I told her how I built the business from the ground up, 0 to 1. I laid out the market potential, my competition analysis, all of it. If you're interested in investing, I added, we'd be more than happy to have you. How wonderful. I like women who have their own careers. Then she changed tone. But we all feel that you and Elias aren't a good match. I propped my chin on my hand and waited for what came next. So if we break up, how much are you offering? She froze, then burst out laughing. I wasn't done yet. We may not think you're suitable, but Elias is insistent, and I admit, you're quite a unique girl, so we've decided to let him be. She slipped a jade bracelet, imperial green and outrageously expensive, onto my wrist. Let's arrange a meal with your parents soon. Have the families meet. You're not getting any younger, and it's best to settle the wedding plans early. My vision darkened for a moment. I wasn't willing to walk away, afraid I'd lose future gains. But getting married? That I didn't want either. I smiled through my teeth, gave a few vague responses, and once I got home, told Elias I wanted to break up. Simple, because once we got married, there would be no turning back. And did I love Elias? I wasn't sure. My love had burned itself out long ago. The occasional flicker of old feelings was nowhere near enough to sustain a lifetime together. Elias's shoulders slumped as he looked at me in silence. Olivia, you really are the weirdest person I've ever met. I silently turned to leave, only to realize he'd locked the door. This is illegal detention. You know that? Furious, I slapped him across the face. Second time's easier. This time, I knew exactly how to make it hurt. Elias leaned in, still smiling. Go on, hit me all you want, but we're not done. He coiled around me like a cold, venomous snake, holding me tight. We'll never be done. Chapter 14. Elias confiscated all my electronics and took me to a remote island for vacation. It was the same place I used to dream of visiting with him. I said I wanted to see the sunset, learn to dive, surf with him. Back then, Elias never had time. Now, he was the complete opposite. Even after exhausting me at night, he still had the energy to carry me out to see the sunrise. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate. It rained for days, and the skies were gloomy. We sat in silence. I cleared my throat. After we broke up, I came here once, with Sabrina. I was a mess, heartbroken, eyes swollen from crying, vision blurred, no energy to do anything. Sabrina scolded me for being lovesick. Why do you need a boyfriend to do anything? Whether you go or not, the view will always be there. So I dragged myself here and ended up witnessing the most beautiful sunset I'd ever seen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I suddenly burst into tears. That moment made my world feel bigger, finally. It wasn't just about love anymore. So I'm always late, aren't I? Always one step behind. Elias looked tired. His eyes were bloodshot. I knew he hadn't been sleeping. He kept waking up at night, checking over and over if I was still beside him. But I didn't really care. He held my hand and kissed it gently. But can't you give me just one last chance? Let me make it up to you. I won't fail you again. I shook my head. None of us were really wrong. It was just that love had missed its timing. Chapter 15. The night before we left the island, the hotel suddenly started shaking violently. Elias shook me awake in panic. Earthquake! I shot up and saw pure terror in his eyes. I had a curse ready to unleash, but it stuck in my throat. If he hadn't dragged me to this godforsaken place, I wouldn't be in this mess. But this wasn't the time to argue. The entire building swayed like it might collapse. I didn't notice the chandelier above us until it came crashing down. Elias reacted instantly, pulling me into his arms and shielding me with his body. Blood everywhere. Elias! I screamed, rushing to check his injury. There was a deep gash across his lower back. I tore off my shirt to press against the wound and stop the bleeding, but the blood just wouldn't stop. Elias's lips grew pale. I frantically called for emergency help, begging him not to fall asleep. His hand clutched mine tightly as he slowly pulled out a small box from his pocket. An engagement ring. I remembered it. I'd seen it in his study drawer right after we got back together. So, he had it ready all along. Tears shimmered in his eyes. His lips trembled. In the face of disaster, power and wealth meant nothing. At that moment, we were stripped of all pride, status, and pretense. Just two people in love. If we survive this, will you marry me? My mind went blank. And suddenly, I remembered something I read years ago, Zhang Ailing's Love in a Fallen City. Two people, calculating and guarded, only found sincerity when the city was crumbling around them. I nodded frantically. Elias slipped the ring on my finger, then passed out from blood loss. Paramedics rushed in, saying a flurry of things I barely heard. I don't remember how I answered. When I came to, I was already in a hospital bed. Elias was lying beside me. Chapter 16. After returning home, Elias and I quickly held our wedding. Duncan came to witness the ceremony, raising his glass in a silent toast to me. In a quiet corner, he sneered. I thought you wouldn't fall into something so cliché, marrying someone you don't love. His words were laced with contempt, implying I had traded love for luxury. So what? Plenty of men do the same thing. Why doesn't anyone call them out? Besides, in both love and money, Elias is clearly my best option. Wearing my white gown, I calmly replied, marriage is simply a woman's oldest method of survival. I made up my mind long ago. I'm willing to sacrifice anything to move up in this world. I've always been honest with myself, even about the darker parts. Elias rested a light hand on my waist. Funny. When I proposed, you cried like you were about to faint. That's not what you said then. He glanced at Duncan with a smug look, watching him retreat in embarrassment. I lied. I was just afraid you'd actually die. Then who would give me money? I looked at Elias with a half-smile. My husband was far too composed now to get angry over words like that. He ran his fingers over my wedding ring and generously shared half of his assets with me. Whether there's love or not, at least we belong to each other now. Love only reveals itself after prolonged conflict and struggle. And for us, the real battle has just begun.